across the gun counter, guys. I'm your host, Joe Reba, joined by my co-host,
Tyler Weaver.
Alrighty, and we are here this week. We're here to talk about project guns. But before we get into it, Tyler, what's been new that's been floating around the shop this week for you?
Oh, one thing that kind of surprised me, I had a Cooper rifle, or Cooper Firearms Model 54, which it's very similar to a Remington 700 if you just looked at a Remington 700 and built one,
Okay.
because none of the tooling fits. And I mean none of it. So it was one of those things where it's like you take the job on and then you start getting into the weeds and you're like, yeah, this is going to cost a lot more than I thought it would on my end.
Something that was a little bit, you thought you were going to be able to do pretty easily, and then turned out to be like, oh crap, this is going to be about 3 to 4 times the work.
Yeah, man, it's little things like, okay, they're a tri-lug. So
Okay.
now I need a tri-lug action wrench that'll go through the receiver to break the barrel loose off of it, so I can even start. So
Oh, wow.
before I could even do anything with the gun, I had to make up my own tri-lug tool so I can break it apart. Because, I mean, I could buy one for like $85, $95, or I could just take the time, whip one up quick. So it ended up working. I got it apart. When I went to do the barrel threading, it's not a standard barrel shank like a Remington 700, which is 1 inch, 1/16 by 16 threads per inch. They knock off a 16th of an inch, so it's only 1 inch, 16 threads per inch.
Hmm.
Yeah, so even like I have a little lug lapping tool and all that for like 700s, and that doesn't fit. So it's like, all right, I'd have to make up one of those. And even the recoil lug is not the same shape as your standard Remington 700. So the recoil lug tools that I have for aligning it when you go to crank the barrel back on wouldn't work.
Jeez. So, is this compatible with the Remington 700 at all, like in terms of stocks or triggers or anything like that?
As far as stocks, you might be okay.
Okay.
Triggers, I don't think so. It to me it looks more like a Tika style trigger.
Okay.
Yeah, where it doesn't have the 2 pins that go through the side. It more or less has screws that go up from underneath.
Okay. See, I like Tikas, so I can't really complain there, but if it looks
Yeah.
like a Remington 700, but it's not a Remington 700, what's the benefit of going with this over a Remington 700?
I mean, you definitely have the tri-lug, which is nice because it distributes the recoil against 3 lugs rather than 2. You get a shorter bolt throw on it. But overall, I mean, as far as quality goes, it's probably a better made action. And I say probably because I really haven't gotten into it too much.
Okay.
So just from my experience, it looks pretty well made. This is my first one that I've had in the shop.
Yeah, I'm not really too familiar with them. So yeah, definitely if you can send me pictures, I'll have to take a look at them. But I mean, it makes sense though if you can make those tools and then potentially use them down the road, why spend the money on those tools? I think.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I got a little creative with it. So for the actual part that goes into the receiver to like fit in those tri-lugs and break it loose, I ended up using a cut-off Polish tonneau barrel.
Okay.
So if anybody's familiar with that, it's kind of like the Polish AK-74. So right where the chamber section is, it was big enough where I could mill in those 3 lugs. And what I ended up doing was using the chamber and boring that out a little bit. And I took a half-inch extension for like a socket set.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up lopping off the square end, turning that down so it was a press fit, going over to my press and pressing it on, and then I welded it in just for good measure.
No, nice. See,
Yep. So
that's something cool that I think we're going to talk about a little bit later on in the episode. I want to touch on is you used a part from an old gun or an old firearm that's basically not being used anymore, and you repurposed it. And that's
yeah,
something
absolutely.
we're going to get into a little bit later because you know exactly what I'm talking about with that.
Yeah, and especially being a gunsmith, I know what's good steel to keep around and what's junk. Hammer forged barrel steel is definitely good for tough use stuff.
Oh yeah, there's a reason why the American AK community is very picky on what kind of trunnion is in their AK.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh man, yeah, it's the cast trunnion. No, it's funny because I always want to say cast iron and it's cast steel, obviously.
Oh, if it was cast iron,
But
that would be junk.
but it's always so much funnier when you think cast iron. Like imagine a cast iron trunnion on an AK.
Yeah, it would just shatter.
Oh, absolutely. But it's a funny concept.
hmm
It's
Yeah,
funny.
so how about you, man? What have you had come into the shop? Anything interesting?
You know, it's funny actually because I was talking about hammer forged AKs, trunnions and stuff like that. In terms of used stuff, nothing of note. But we've actually had a decent number of the new Century Arms AKs come in, like
Yep.
the various models. And of course, I mean, everyone can criticize Century all they want, but I'll say this with the recent batch of stuff that we got, they're nice. They're not,
Yep.
I mean, they are what they are. They're a little bit rougher, of course. You have to oil them and stuff like that, and you have
They're
to.
going to take time to wear in.
Yeah, of course, because they have like that. It's more of a, I want to say like a phosphate kind of finish, not
Mm.
like you know what I'm talking about, like a phosphate parkerized kind of
Yeah.
finish, rather than like a bluing or
Yeah, like a bead blast it and like glass bead it and blued.
yeah, kind of. It's a much rougher material. So I'm curious to see how they last long term. But to be honest with you, they look pretty nice to me, and I think that's you know, they've come a long way from what they were years ago. Everyone always says like, oh, Wasser 10s used to be $350. Now people want $1,000 for them. And it's like, well,
Mhm.
yeah, to be fair, also, when they were $350, people also considered them junk. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly. Nobody wanted them.
Exactly. And the sights were always canted. The rivets were always garbage. There was just nothing. I mean, what were some other complaints about the Wasser 10s back in the day? I think you had a little more. You might have had a little more experience.
One thing that sticks out to me was trigger slap. I heard they had a lot of trigger slap issues with those, but I didn't experience that firsthand. I think I've only shot maybe one Wasser 10.
Okay. See, I had one years ago. It was actually my first AK, and I really don't.
New Jersey legal one.
Yeah, it actually was. But see, the thing was, New Jersey legal one for that really wasn't too bad. There was just no bayonet lug. I had the muzzle brake on it, that little, and that was just kind of on there. Yeah, that was just it. And 10 round magazine, which that was the
I was gonna
biggest.
say it wasn't single stack, right?
So if in hindsight, if I was to go back and actually play with the AK, I could actually tell you from what I know now. But it might have
Yeah.
initially. I think it was one of those single stacks that were widened to take
Okay.
the double stack because I had actually bought a Tapco 10 round magazine and it didn't fit.
Oh yeah, and Tapco never made a 10 or a single stack mag.
Yeah, no.
Not
So
that I know of.
yeah, so when you would go to rock the magazine in, it would kind of bottom out, or like it would actually get stuck on the rear lips of the AK mag.
Mhm.
So I actually had to file those down to
Oh,
actually.
doing some gunsmithing.
Yeah, that was some early Joey gunsmithing, I guess, was getting a 10 round magazine to fit into an AK, so it wasn't a single shot AK. But
Yep.
alas, I got the magazine working and I got it fitted in. The problem was it was so tight in there, like you actually had to like almost hold the AK into you and actually
Mhm.
kind of rock it out. Like you
I
actually
gotcha.
kind of force it out. It was a real pain, but it was a lot of fun to shoot. Now, whether it had that trigger slap like you mentioned, I really don't remember. I think it actually had a Tapco G2 trigger. That was something I remember
Okay.
the guy
Yeah.
who bought it from me ended up, mentioning. Well, I
Mhm.
traded it for another firearm, but I remember he said, "Oh, it's got a Tapco G2 trigger in it." He goes, "Well, that's good." I said,
Yeah,
"Oh,
and you're like, ooh, sounds good. I guess.
Yeah, because I had no idea about any of those parts in the day. I was just like,
Yeah.
it's an AK.
Tapco, I've heard of them.
Yeah, exactly. And
We've all done that.
yeah, and nowadays it's like now I know. I mean, Tapco, the G2 triggers were pretty good, but nowadays you hear Tapco and you just think, no, Tapco, no.
Yep. Alrighty, man. Let's get into it today. What are we talking about?
Yeah, so like we mentioned earlier, or as I say, as we mentioned in the intro, was the project guns is going to be this week's topic.
All right, so let's define a project gun, shall we?
So we define a project gun. So I guess a project gun can fall into a couple different categories. You can have something like a parts kit build. You could have something like a refinishing, like a refinishing project. You could even have something as a restoration project, something like that too. Not even just refinishing or rebluing, like literally just restoring the whole firearm.
Yep.
No.
I get quite a few of those into the shop.
So you get quite a lot of those. So I mean, would there be any other kind of gun projects you would think of?
Mm, not off the top of my head, but I think one thing we should touch on is like what makes a good project gun. You know,
Ooh,
so like
I like that.
for
What makes a
me,
good project gun?
because I talk to a lot of customers about stuff, and it's like, hey, I want to build this. Okay, can you get parts for that? What's the parts availability?
That's a
Like,
big thing.
yeah,
Is parts
cool.
availability.
There's what is it? Malaysian AUG kits for like
Ooh,
100 something, 190
150
maybe,
something like that.
150. Yeah, it's like cool. You can get the parts kit. You cannot get anything else. There's nobody making like U.S. made
Yeah,
receivers for those kits or barrels, anything like that.
yeah. No one has a receiver. I think you might be able to get barrels, or you might be able to machine a barrel, or use a barrel from a lathe or something. But I was
Yeah, but
actually
also you have to look into 922R compliance.
that's true as well. Which
You
ooh,
know.
that's something else we're gonna have to get into shortly here. Is 922 the dreaded 922R compliance, I should say.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you're building a gun from a parts, if you're building a foreign made gun from a parts kit, you have to take 922R into consideration here in the United States.
Yeah, that's a law we have to follow, both
So what
individuals and
is
importers.
922R?
So 922R is basically a law that says any foreign-made firearm or any firearm that it was in the United States after the date of the ban. I want to say it was the '89 assault ban or assault import ban. I could be wrong here,
I
but
believe so. I think it ties in hand with that one.
yeah, and basically it basically states that after that time, any firearm made has to have no more than 10 foreign made parts on it. So that could be like when you have a parts kit, it could be the receiver, it could be the barrel. You could have two or three different components, which guess we should get into what is a parts kit in a second. But
Mm-hmm.
basically, 922R compliancy, any firearms, whether you're an importer or an individual, you have to have no more than 10 foreign made parts on that. And that's why certain companies like Zastava, when they do their AKs and stuff, they bring the AKs in and they switch out the handguards, the front, basically everything that's not going to affect the functionality of the rifle, and they swap out over here in the States because they want to keep that as true to the original firearm as possible. And
Yep.
so
Yeah,
you as
that's why most of the time you'll just see the furniture swapped out.
exactly, and if that's the easiest thing to do and not affect again the overall functionality of the rifle, do it. That's another
Mm.
thing is because when you bring something into the United States and let's say you're swapping out the triggers, guess what? That's another piece of labor you're doing. That's more time for someone else to take out that trigger, something else to go wrong with it, another pin to go wrong, or again, you're doing more work than you need to do.
Yeah, especially it's easier to work on the outside of the gun. So furniture, muzzle brake, flash hider, whatever you want to call it, stuff of that nature that fits the bill. And a
Exactly.
lot of them will come with a U.S. made magazine, and sometimes they'll even have like a note inside that's saying this gun is only compliant with a U.S. made magazine.
You know, it's funny actually. Speaking of Wasser 10s earlier, I saw one Wasser 10 that actually came with a little tag that said that is, this rifle has to be used with U.S. made magazines only.
Yep. Yeah, because the magazine itself counts as three compliance parts because you have the magazine body, the follower, and the floor plate, actually.
Yep.
So, how that makes sense, I don't know. I don't write laws, but
Again, gun laws don't make sense,
yeah.
but
Yes. And it's funny because, like, if you take the Yugo SKS, or
mhm.
actually, I think any of the SKSs, SKSEs, I don't
Yeah, the
know.
SKSEs, the SKSI.
Yeah, the SKSs, like the Yugo SKS, as it's imported, it's completely Yugoslavian. Nothing has to be swapped out. Now, say you take out the what is it, like the box magazine, and go with some sort of like detachable style duckbill or whatever. Now everything has to get changed to be 922R compliant.
Yeah, and that's if you add up the certain components, it's because I forget what the reason is.
Well, I believe it's grandfathered in.
Well, no, the SKS is they're fine as it is coming in, but when you add the duckbill magazine, I think most of the duckbill magazines are actually U.S. made.
Yeah, but I believe there's something with 922R compliance with the SKS that as soon as you switch out one part, now you have to switch out, the certain number of parts. I forget exactly how that works, but I believe I read something on that.
Huh. But yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
We'll have to look into that more and come back to that when we do our 922R compliance episode.
Yeah, because we can dive down that rabbit hole. But I guess the next thing is after 922R compliancy and all that good stuff is, talk about parts kit and different definitions of parts kits, because I think parts kits come in all shapes and sizes. Wouldn't you say, Tyler?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, I just sent you a link. FN America on Instagram.
Yep, already signed up, already got in there.
Yeah, they have a sweepstakes for FN FAL parts kit.
So a parts kit. Now, I kind of defined I was thinking about this before we recorded this, how would I define a gun parts kit? And I think a gun parts kit encompasses a wide variety of things, but I think you could basically sum it up as a gun parts kit is basically a culmination of, gun parts that may be missing some components like the receiver or barrel, or they may have some. Some of the kits may require demilling, which is another process, which is basically removing excess parts, which aren't needed in the initial, in the final build, or basically breaking those components down to the bare bones, the bare essential components, like in an AK, breaking it down to the trunnions. And then there's other kits which are, they're basically Legos. They just kind of go together, like AR-15s and AR-10s. I'm not.
You get all the parts; they're all nice and clean, and you just put them together.
Yeah, and you can do it on your kitchen counter, and some people make fun of that, and I think that's actually pretty damn cool.
Hey, I don't want to hear it. I built an MG42 on my kitchen counter.
Did you really? That's awesome.
For the most part, besides the welding.
That's cool. See, so people, if you can do an AR-15, or I don't want to say if you can do an AR-15, you can do an MG42 on your kitchen counter, but if you can do an MG42 on your kitchen counter, you can sure as hell do an AR-15 on your kitchen counter.
And that's why I opened a business.
Well, I heard someone say you could do that with the AK with the rivets, because if you take the hand rivet, that rivet jaw like I have, but I really wouldn't trust that.
No, I'm not a big fan of those.
No, not at all. I guess, if you could in desperate times, call for desperate measures, but if you can use a press.
You know what? That's another thing that we should put with what makes a good project gun. Level of difficulty.
Yeah, level of difficulty. That's something I didn't even think of initially.
Yeah, because, let's be honest. A lot of people will get in over their head with parts kit builds. They buy it. Oh, it's a good deal. I can get this parts kit. And then they really look at what they have and go, I can't do this. That's when they reach out to me and have me build their kit.
Oh, but, yeah. There's Suomi 9mm.
Yeah, wasn't that you?
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, it's one of those things. Even I run into trouble sometimes where it's like, the gas block. It's pressed onto a torch cut section of barrel, and it's like, well, nothing's straight here. How the hell do I press that off? Well, I have to kind of grind it square so the press ram will actually sit nicely on it, and give it hell with a 20-ton press and see if it'll pop loose and scare the shit out of everybody in the house.
See, and it's funny because you mentioned the 20-ton press and scaring everyone in the house is not even the level of difficulty, but do you have all the tools to do the job? And I ran into that when I was doing my AK build initially, was I didn't have all the tools, and then I started slowly trying to buy the tools, and I was like, oh, wow.
It gets expensive real quick.
Yeah, it does. A drill press alone, you want a decent drill press, too. You don't want the cheapest one on the market.
Mm-hmm.
That alone is about $200.
And you can get by, like, if it's more of a novelty thing, like, hey, let's see if I can build an AK with the tools on hand. Cool. That in and of itself serves a purpose, as long as, the end resulting firearm is safe and, functions correctly. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you were going for. I wouldn't mind doing that, like a hand tools only, no electric sort of build.
That'd be kind of neat to do.
Yeah, without, fancy machine tools, mill, lathe, all that good stuff. Speaking of doing stuff by hand, one thing I've been wanting to do is like a Pennsylvania long rifle. Something like that, where it's like literally all hand tools doing it the correct way they would have done it,
See, that's another kind of parts kit I didn't even think about to include, was those old, the flintlock kits, which are pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. You have people spending thousands of dollars on parts kits with a, like a semi-inlet stock blank and everything. And a lot of the stuff, it's like, hey, you get a raw brass casting trigger guard that you have to, file and polish. You get springs, well, spring steel that isn't hardened or tempered, any of that stuff. So, like, it can get pretty involved, but you'll get the components necessary to build it.
Yeah, see, a lot of those kits were cool. Like, actually, I believe it's a Thompson Hawken 50 caliber, which actually we need to get together and take a look at that one day because I think I need to replace a screw on the sight leaf. But that was actually
I
my
think I have
grandfather's.
two of them down in the shop right now.
Oh, well, you know what? I'll have to bring that over one of the next times. But
Yeah.
that was a kit my grandfather had actually built that he had actually hung up on the wall for years, like in 50 caliber. And that
Nice.
was cool. That was one of the old box kits. And literally, exactly like you said, you kind of polish up the brass yourself. You kind of put a stain and a finish onto the stock and
Mhm.
throw it all
They're
together.
beginner kits.
Yeah, exactly. And that was basically, they give you all the instructions. And that was also, I don't want to say that was from a time, they started from a time where people were a little more resourceful than they are nowadays. But
Yeah, yeah.
let's
They
be
knew how to
honest.
use a file and stuff like that.
Yeah, let's be honest there. They were a little more resourceful back then than nowadays,
Yeah.
but I think people in our field are generally a little more resourceful than the average person. I'm not trying to call anyone out by saying that, but you just get what I'm saying in terms of tools and basic handiness
Yeah,
and
no,
whatnot.
no, I agree. Yeah, I see some of the AR-15s that come in that people have assembled themselves, and it's like, how hard were you going at that with a punch? I see you
Oh,
missed a few times.
oh yeah, I even look at some of my early stuff too, where I just kind of rushed it, and I kind of went, "Ooh, I'm going to use the dreaded word, the Dremel."
Mm-hmm.
So it's, I mean, but you also grow, you learn and you grow further with it. Like I wouldn't dare touch a Dremel for most things anymore.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why, like, surprisingly enough, if you look in my safe, some of my guns, I mean, they're pretty bad, but it's like, hey, that was my first one. That was my first Uzi build. That was my first AK build. And you can see, like, the learning process as it goes. So it's kind of like a cool little timeline of my skill. But I wouldn't get rid of any of those guns, even though I look at them and I'm like, God damn, what the hell was I doing?
yeah, but again, like you said, it shows your progress. And Rome wasn't built in a day. I know I say that a lot, but
Mm-hmm.
it's true. It shows that, whether you as an individual or as a gunsmith, you learn, you grow, you learn a couple new skills, especially with like pressing rivets and stuff, like how not to overpress rivets.
Yep. Getting everything lined up correctly for one.
Yep, and lining up the front, and populating the barrel, which, again, we talked about AKs in a certain, century getting better over the years. Like, hey, if an individuals were doing it, why couldn't they do it on a mass scale?
Yep.
But that's just my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, they introduced, they were one of the big people who brought up, the AK market at an affordable rate, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to give Century credit for making the AK what it is in the United States. I mean, as far as availability goes, that's where most people saw AKs on their local gun shop shelves.
Especially
know.
after the import bans and stuff.
Yep. So I really can't knock them other than, when I have to work on them.
But I mean, again, they did have their reputation for a while for a reason. There were certain models that were just flat out awful.
Yep, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons a lot of people get interested in doing project guns because they're like, well, I don't hear good things about this or that, and it's like, why don't I just try to make it myself? Which is
Exactly.
one of the reasons I got into it. And my first one was an Uzi parts kit that I ended up getting. I think it was from like Numrich or something like that.
See,
Back when they were dirt cheap.
yeah, I wish I picked one up when they were dirt cheap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, heck, the bolt I think cost the bolt and the barrel were easily double, if not triple, the price of the parts kit. That was like where all the money went into.
So, what parts did you need to get for that kit?
So for the Uzi parts kit, you had to get a US made receiver, which was stamped sheet metal and it was bent, but it didn't have anything welded into it. So it's a little more like I would put that in like the easy to moderate range. Somebody's starting out. I mean, like I said, it was my first parts kit build, and I did it with a MIG welder because that was the only welder we had at the time. And I mean, if you're cleaning up your welds and everything, it actually turned out pretty nice. I actually ended up SBRing it. But you get the US made receiver that you have to weld all the stuff onto. You have to rivet the sling swivel in. You have to get a US made barrel, which is in the semi-auto configuration, because for Uzis, full auto and semi-auto barrels are different because they make a little collar on the inside that a semi-auto barrel will have to slip into to limit a full auto barrel from actually being able to go into the gun. So they also have a full auto blocking bar that gets welded into it. So you also need a semi-auto bolt, which then converts it from open bolt to striker fire.
So in that case, what did you convert the bolt yourself, or you said you bought the bolt?
Nah, those bolts, from what I understand, are pretty freaking hard. Like, you really need like good machinery and carbide tooling if you wanted to convert it. But in my opinion, it's almost not worth it.
Okay.
As long as, like, who the heck was making them? I think it was like McKay Industries or something like that. Somebody was making decent semi-auto bolts, and I think they were like maybe $200, and you get the bolt, the springs, both the striker spring, the recoil spring, the striker, or like all that for like the $230. So it really wasn't bad. Whereas if you converted your bolt, great, now you have to make all the other shit and find the springs that'll work for it. So you kind of have that going against you.
Yeah, see, that's something else too, is how much is going to be involved in terms of what you're going to actually have to purchase to get your parts get up and running. I mean, I'll use the Suomi kit as an example. I thought that kit was going to be pretty much buy the receiver, buy a parts kit.
Cut and dry, man.
Yeah, no, that kit was a lot more, especially since the company that makes all the parts wasn't selling all the parts.
Yep.
So that was a hunt.
You'll run into that a lot.
Yep, especially nowadays with old forms and all that stuff, and Gunbroker, and I mean, you name it.
Yeah, and I do have to put out a little PSA here that, just because you see some other asshole do it on the internet doesn't mean it's a great idea.
Exactly. Again, the internet is full of wonderful and terrible ideas.
Kind of like this podcast.
Exactly. Kind of like my life. Exactly. Oh man. But
yeah, you can tell it's late.
Yeah, but with that being said, different projects. I think, what would you, before we, I guess, dive into the next style of projects, what would you recommend as like the first part kit build, or like an entry level, good all around, like kind of covers your bases?
I mean, I guess it would. The first question I would have to ask is like, what is your shop setup like? Like, what kind of tooling do you have access to? What's your skill level? Because I mean, if it's like, hey man, I got some wrenches, I have a hammer, punch set, it's like, cool. Do a halfway decent AR build. And I say halfway decent as in like good parts, but understand that you're still new to it. So, I wouldn't go spending a shit ton of money on, high tier stuff, and then you smack it with a hammer and break something, Yeah,
not a bad.
A decent AR build would be good for like somebody with minimal tools. If you're a little more machine savvy, I know a lot of people are into machining. They have their own little shop setups, or they have access to it at work. Sten guns are great. Uzis are great. Anything in that realm, sub guns. They're usually pretty simple.
Yeah, see, that's what I was thinking along those lines, with something like a sub gun. But to be honest, I really think an AK, I never understood why people said, like, in all the builders forums, why an AK is a good starting point for a good parts kit build. And after going through building the Hungarian one with you, I understand why. And it's the reason, at least what they say, is because it's a little bit more difficult of a build, but it gets you involved with demilling. It gets you involved with using a press. It gets you involved with, putting the trigger in. It gets you involved with pressing the barrel. It gets you involved with so many more different tools and aspects. So you kind of learn a lot more for future projects. Yes, it's a little more on the difficult side, and yeah, you're going to need a lot more tools to do it. So not everyone can start there. But I think honestly, if someone has the tools and capability, that's not a bad place to start.
Yeah, and it's really not, especially like if you have a little bit more skill under your belt and a little more, equipment to work with.
Hmm.
AKs really aren't that bad once you know what you're doing. Well, I shouldn't even say once you know what you're doing. Once you have a good idea of what needs to be done.
Yeah, because I mean, hell, I mean, I did the one with you, and then, I mean, I helped you with a couple others shortly after.
Yeah,
it's not a difficult process.
yeah, and
I mean, it is, but it's not. It's a I don't know. It's weird. It's hard to describe.
it is, and it really depends on the parts kit. I mean, there's times where I've spent an hour and a half trying to get one fucking
You have
part
to,
demilled.
yeah, you have to want to build an AK to build an AK.
Mm-hmm. Well, exactly. That's why, like, because I have a general gunsmithing, gun making shop where I take AKs on because I like them, not because it's more of a money making venture at that point. So what I'll do is I'll batch them. I'll do anywhere from like 4 to 6 AKs in a batch. That way, it's like, hey, the tooling's set up. I'm gonna do the front trunnions on all of them. That way it's more of a dedicated process.
Yep.
Rather than, okay, what's next for today? Damn it, I have to build an AK. Well, get all the tooling out, get it set up.
You're basically a one-man assembly line at that point.
Yeah, and you're wasting time, honestly.
That's the thing is if you take it all out just for one AK, it's really not worth it. Same thing with
and that's why
or a lot of other projects. I mean, hell,
that's
especially
why you
bluing.
That's why you see a lot of these places drying up. Quite frankly, like how many build services do you see? Like people actually building like Bren guns and stuff like that. Because it's very hard to make money on it.
Wait, there's a Bren gun build service out there?
There was. I think it was actually called Project Guns. They had little tutorials up on their website.
I vaguely
I don't know if they still do it. Yep.
Yeah, because I remember a few years ago, a while ago, there was, or you'll find this individual builder online who will do it, or a guy like Tyler.
Yeah, but again, well, I probably won't do Bren guns now.
Yeah, no.
Because like I said, it's just from a business point of view, it's too hard to make money on it. But like for me, I built a Bren gun for myself, and it was a neat experience. There was a lot of welding and machining and stuff like that in it, so I really enjoyed it. But when you're getting into a project gun, you have to realize, like, is this really for the experience or for the outcome?
And that's kind of what you, I guess, have to figure out before you even get into the project is what your end result going to be or what your end goal is going to be from the project.
I mean, for me, like, a lot of my parts kit builds are for the experience. So, like, if it's one of those things like, oh, I have 20 minutes, I should get downstairs and work on that. It's like, no, because I want to enjoy it. I want to take, like, an entire weekend and work on this build. So the experience is really what I get out of it.
See, for me with parts kits, it's a little bit of both the experience and more, I want that gun. And I know there's just so many on the market that I'm just not. I know mine and Tyler's will be better. Just saying. Just saying. So,
yeah.
But I guess after parts kits, our next projects, I guess our final project guns, I guess we talk about, we like refinishing projects or like restoration projects. I think we can kind of lump those into one kind of category.
We might even do a whole episode on refinishing versus restoration and what I feel like the technical definitions are. Because to me, it's completely different.
Okay.
If you're trying to refinish a gun, for me, you're trying to make it better than it ever was.
Okay.
If you're trying to restore a gun, if the factory polished it only to 320 grit, you polish it to 320 grit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're trying to make it authentic.
Yeah, no, that's true. That makes more sense because like we'll use like the refinishing, like so recently you helped me out with I refinished that Makarov that you helped me out with. And that was a really cool project because this Makarov was in need of some love. It was a commercial Makarov, so don't worry, there was no harm done in the
And that's hold on. Let me interject in that. That's another thing. When it comes to project guns, do no harm. You
Yeah.
know, if something's highly sought after, collectible, even if it's in like fair to good shape, it might be worth leaving it alone.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when it comes like restoring. You know, I would always get 2, 3, maybe even 4 opinions before committing to refinishing something that might be of value.
And I think you would agree that Makarov.
Yeah. Make a good paperweight.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
kind of an ugly one, but
and it actually was the cover art for one of our previous episodes. That was actually
was it?
Yeah, for checklist for buying a gun. I actually believe that was the gun in the corner.
You know what? You're right. It was.
Yeah, so a little bit of a Easter egg, I guess, if you will. And that I'm really happy with how that came out. That gun, that was such a fun project gun because we stripped that gun down completely, basically filed everything down, got it nice and clean. This
Got
thing
the
was
pits out of it.
oh yeah, the pits.
Most of the pits.
Yeah, most of it, and most of the scratches. There was a couple that you just really couldn't get out. And I mean, this thing needed some love. This had a lot of scratches on it. It was pretty much down to the bare metal. So stripped that all down. We ended up rebluing it, which that was really fun because we reblued a bunch of stuff that day too. That was over the summer. Yeah, so we reblued that. Then the only thing was with that gun was reassembling the rear sight because those commercial ones have that weird, funky kind of adjustable rear sight. It wasn't sitting right, and the screws were not lining back up in place. So I ended up just ordering that aftermarket rear fix sight, and then I bought a $10 pair. Not $10, it was like a $10 or $20 pair of just Makarov grips, and that thing looks nice and it shoots great. And I'll tell you, that was worth every dollar and every bit of the project.
Yeah, and you got the experience. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
before that, have you ever polished a gun up for bluing?
Nope. Well,
So
I
this was one of those things.
But no.
You tried. But yeah, this was one of those things where it's like, hey, it gets me some good experience. It's a relatively simple job. The risk versus reward benefit definitely is in your favor. So it's like, hey, even if I don't do a great job on it, it's probably still better than it was.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. Especially with that gun, and that's such a fun shooter. I absolutely love shooting. I absolutely love shooting that gun. I mean, I know you only test fired it. You test fired it the one time, but it's a lot of fun. You don't have any other 9x18 Mac guns, do you?
No, I don't.
Oh, we gotta get you out there with that. That's a lot of fun. The 9x18 Mac. I know it's
What gun I really liked?
Hmm.
I did a test fire. I forget what the heck I did on it, but it was a Tokarev.
Oh, dude,
What are those? The
7.62 Tokarev. Yeah, 7.62 by
7.62
25.
Tokarev. Man, that's a spicy little
Dude,
bastard.
those are, anyone who's listening to this, if you like surplus guns, which I'm assuming if you listen to this podcast, you probably do, surplus guns, go get yourself a Tokarev. I don't care if it's a Yugo, Russian, Romanian. I have a Romanian. My buddy has a Yugo or two. They're fantastic guns. They're very affordable right now. They're under $500. The ammo can be a little bit pricey here and there, but you can typically find it for about $20 to $30 a box. I'd say more 25 to 30, given the post-pandemic world. But if they're in 7.62 Tokarev, you can also chamber the 7.63 Mauser in there.
Really?
Yep, you can get away with it. Ian from Forgotten Weapons, he actually posted, I remember he was talking about it a while ago, and then he actually ran a match with it the one time, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. So during the pandemic, I had actually picked up a couple boxes of 7.63 Mauser because I was able to find 7.63 Mauser for cheaper than I can get 7.62 Tokarev.
Yep. But now for me, that 7.62 Tokarev is really what makes it. Like I said, I test fired it.
Oh, yeah.
Being a gunsmith, you're kind of jaded to test fires. It's just part of the job. But, once I squeezed off those first two, I'm like, ooh, I kind of like this.
Well, yeah, it's a comfortable pistol too. It looks like it wouldn't be comfortable, but it's basically like a...
Yeah, it surprises you.
It really does, and it's a potent round, but it doesn't have a lot of recoil.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I've shot Glocks that I liked a lot less.
Exactly. So, and most people I know who own Tokarevs say they really enjoy shooting them.
Mm-hmm.
Which I believe...
Granted, I wouldn't carry one, but...
No. I mean,
that's not here nor there. You could if you needed to, but...
Which actually, speaking of project guns, the Tokarev I have was imported with one of those weird, funky aftermarket safeties on the left side of the pistol. and
Mm-hmm.
and it just looks atrocious. And it never used to bother me, but now that I am who I am now, I guess, it bothers me.
Yeah.
So So what I was thinking is we're actually going to have to remove that aftermarket safety, and I've heard of other people doing that, and basically what they did was they just welded over that safety hole.
Okay. That really shouldn't be a big deal.
No, I mean, I'll show it to you. I'll have to send you a picture of it later, but it seems like
Mm.
pretty easy. But a lot of people have done it, I guess, and then you have the more true, authentic look to the Tokarev in its original form.
Yeah. The only thing with welding up holes and bluing, sometimes you do get a little discoloration because the heat changes the steel, so
Oh, that's
it
true.
doesn't take color exactly the same. Yeah. Sometimes you can get away with it. It'll match pretty damn close, and other times you'll notice it.
Gotcha. This is a piece of Comblock steel, so
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know.
Keep the heat low. See what you can do.
Yeah. So I think that'll be a cool. But again, another project. But that gun was not something I bought as a project gun, but more something I will be turning into a project, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. One thing I've really wanted to get into is like a good project revolver gun. I know who the heck was it? Might have been J&G Sales had Smith and Wesson revolvers, like ex-police revolvers that they imported, but I think whatever country they were coming out of, they couldn't get shipped with the barrel. So it's the entire gun minus the barrel.
Hmm. That's
So
weird. I think
yeah,
that I think
somebody like a machinist that can get a barrel, if it needs to be fit up, timed correctly, can handle something like that. That might not be a bad project either.
no, that's not something bad for someone like you. I mean, that's not
Mm-mm.
something I would take on if I didn't have access to that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, sometimes it might clock up pretty close where you can get away with like filing the front of the frame just so it sits back. Like, I mean, if you're off like a degree, something like that where you can just kind of file the frame and it'll tweak in. Yeah, you can do that without any sort of machine tools, but you also do need a pistol barrel vise and the action wrench. So right there, you're talking maybe a couple $100.
Yeah, so you're talking quite a little bit. Not an AR-15, kitchen counter build.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, you could kind of throw revolvers into that moderate to maybe even more advanced, where like I would put precision rifles, 1911s, anything that has to be like something that has a lot of like fit parts.
Yeah, a lot of hand fitting, or not necessarily hand fitting, but a lot of fitting. Yeah, I guess hand fitting if it's a project gun. Yeah, hand fitting.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're on a manual lathe and a manual mill, I would consider that hand fit because you're
Doing
turning things by hand.
Yeah, you're doing it yourself. That's exactly what I was getting at, which is kind of funny. We're thinking along the same lines there.
Yeah, because I mean, like 1911s, I mean, you could just about fit everything on that. Slide to frame, uh, barrel into the slide. You could do the front barrel bushing to your barrel. I mean, you name it, you could basically fit it.
Oh, another thing to note with project guns is if you
Mhm.
see something that's been sitting on the shelf at a store for maybe a couple of years, and you're wondering, maybe that's a good idea for a project. Before you buy it, maybe there's a reason why it's been sitting on the shelf for a couple of years.
Yeah, that's a good point. I
I,
know me and my buddies used to wander into gun shops and be like, "All right, what do you have for $50?"
yeah,
then
exactly.
then you'll usually get some old like single action shot or single shot shotguns, the break action style or something like that, which are decent project guns because nobody wants them. They're $50, and I mean parts are very readily available because you can just about buy an entire gun and take what you need.
Yeah, so something like that. Super easy to throw together, and you know what you're getting into for $50. It's not like you're buying, let's say, a Luger frame or something like that, or I don't know,
Or a
just
$1,000 Matty AK parts kit.
oh yeah, something, something where you might be taking a little bit of a risk on if it's been at the shop for a while. I think you're safer with a Mahdi parts kit than you would be with like a Luger frame. And the
Yeah,
reason
but you're still spending $1,000 just on the kit.
you are, that's true. But with the Luger frame, there's so much more fitting involved with Lugers than there is with
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you could buy, let's say someone says a Luger parts kit and they show you all the parts, unless it's all matching and they have the all matching frame and everything.
Yeah, forget it.
Yeah, it's not worth your time. Trust me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's one thing a lot of people don't realize is just how much old guns were hand fit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, nowadays we have CNC, which yes can hold tight tolerances, but there's a completely different level when you get into like hand fitting.
Yeah, and there's also a different art that was behind that back in the day too.
Mm-hmm.
That I think
Yeah,
is a little
and
bit lost nowadays.
oh, it is because a lot of the people that were doing it, yeah, they got into their ways of hand fitting stuff, and you could explain it to somebody all you want, but until they've done it for 20, 30, 40 years as their job, yeah, they're not going to be as good at it. And by that time, the industry's moved on, and we're not hand fitting as much anymore, so they're not getting the experiences.
Case in point, Colt revolvers.
Yep. Yeah, and it's one of the things you see their advertisements. It's like all CNC. It's like, is that a great thing? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe, might not be. Only time will tell. But
Yeah, I mean, some companies are even using like wire EDM to cut stuff out. Which, if you've never seen that before, definitely look up a video of that. The way it was explained to me, think of it as like reverse welding. Yeah. So instead of adding metal, you're taking it away. Yeah, kind of like laser engraving. Think of it maybe along those lines.
Gotcha.
But yeah, look up wire EDM.
I'll have to check that out. So as we wrap up for this week, Tyler, what's your next big project gun that you have that you wanna finish up?
Oh, I kind of have two. I have that VZ58
Okay.
that I honestly would like to build it as an SBR because the VZ58 is originally a 15.5-inch barrel, which in the US 16 is our minimum requirements. So it's like, do I really want to spend $200 just so it's a half-inch shorter? But for me, it's like, all right, that's $200. I've spent more on a lot stupider stuff.
$200 for half an inch.
$200 for half an inch, exactly. But for me as a gunsmith, it's like I want it correct.
Yeah, you want it to be as true as possible.
Exactly. So that's one of the things I'm kind of waiting on because once I get my NFA truss set up with my suppressor that I'm working on, then I'll probably add it to that truss.
Then you'll tie it.
But yeah, that's one of those things I'm debating on doing. But then the next one would probably be the AK-74 that I'm working on. Well,
okay.
Both AK-74s.
I say both AK-74, so 3 projects actually for you.
Yeah, I guess 3.
See, I'm gonna lump my 3 kind of into a very similar category because I have an AK on there. The Yugo, the M72B1, which the receiver was ordered and should be getting to your business very soon, hopefully.
Nice.
Then I have a Czech gun as well, the VZ61, which I think
I cannot wait for that.
Ooh, I am so excited. I really hope when I get to work tomorrow or within the next couple of days that the receiver is there. And when it is there, I will be so excited.
I think I have a torch cut one floating around in the basement somewhere.
I actually do. Well, I'm not going to use that torch cut, so maybe we'll talk about that later. And then the last one is going to be the project I've had the longest, which is the DP27, 28, depending on your nomenclature. So that'll be up and running soon.
Isn't technically 27 correct?
I believe 27 is technically correct, and then for somehow or other, 28 stuck into Western nomenclature.
Yeah, 28's like the widely accepted name.
But 27.
But yeah, technically DP27.
Yeah. So.
And original Russian, correct? Yeah, so I can't wait for all of them, honestly.
Yeah, so we're going to be posting pictures of those, of course, as we get those. And you know what? That'll be actually, where can they find those pictures at? Where would they be able to find where you post that, Tyler?
So you can find the stuff that I post on Instagram, Facebook at Precision Rifle Works. And if you need to get a hold of me, if you want me to build any of your project guns, you can reach me at www.precisionrifleworks.com.
All right. And then you can go follow me over at SitePicture762 on Instagram. You can follow the page and all our good stuff at Across the Gun Counter on Instagram. And you can also follow us on Across the Gun. Well, check out the website acrosstheguncounter.com, where I swear I'm going to post more with the blog soon. And we're
Yeah,
gonna have
we got to post more pictures on Instagram too.
Yeah, we do. We To be honest, the holidays have been kind of crazy. We kind of had a couple technical issues in recording a few things, and
Yep.
so it's been a crazy few.
It's been a mess.
It's been a mess, and I swear, it's not gonna.
We'll get it together one of these days.
One of these days, I'm gonna stop being a mess. So until next time, guys, take care, stay safe.
Yep. See ya.